Joining us again is William Rick Cronk. He is president of the Boy Scouts of America. Good to have you back, Rick.
Nice to be here.
Well, you know, I was asked once whether scouting is perfect or not, listeners, and I've got to say no. Scouting is not perfect. I don't frankly know any group that is. But what I can say, this past summer I just got back from the 100th anniversary of scouting on Brownsea Island. This group must be striking some note to have lasted 100 years. As you reflect, Rick, on your years in scouting and now a year as president, what would you like to see scouting achieve, say, in the next 100 years?
Well, that's interesting. You mentioned being at the World Jamboree. The World Jamboree, the scouting is very different around the world. There are about 180 countries that have scouting in one form or another. Mm-hmm. And what's fascinating about that is that here you have all these different countries, different cultures, and they're still following the basic Scout Oath and Scout Law. And the promise, the Scout Promise or Scout Oath is almost the same in every country in the world. But more specifically, I'd love to see the Boy Scouts of America more actively involved in World Scouting. They have a chance to go to this World Jamboree once every 4 years.
Oh, yeah.
But those American kids, there were 3,300 American kids at this Jamboree. And, I mean, their eyes were just wide open. They just couldn't, the world was in front of them. And, I mean, it's extraordinary. And so, in some way, to have the Boy Scouts of America be able to participate in, personally or online or whatever, but in a broader sense with Scouts around the world, it would be valuable in all sorts of obvious ways. And then finally, in terms of the Boy Scouts of America, once again, we have to ourselves be sure that we're reaching out to every culture and every community across the country.
I'd agree with you, Rick. I was on Brownsea Island. They had a peace bridge set up, and it just blew me away watching the Scouts approach either side of the bridge, and as they came up, shook hands with the Scout handshake and raised that symbol. It was a moving experience. It just floored me. I could not believe that.
I was at the opening ceremony with all 33,000 kids, and it really was moving. It was remarkable.
You know, and it's to some extent, I almost trace it back to what Baden-Powell said about scouting being a peace movement. One World, One Promise was the theme, listeners, for the Jamboree in London. But it really struck home. One World, One Promise. You could almost say through these 33,000 kids, we have the future seeds of peace in the world. I don't think that's too far a stretch, would you?
And there's no other group like scouting in the world in that regard. I mean, this World Jamboree in August was the largest gathering of young people in the history of the world.
Yeah. It's
remarkable.
And they all got along. I still remember, as I was telling you off air, Rick, there's representatives from 10 different countries all playing a game of soccer, and there was no, I'm from this group, I'm this person, I have more wealth than you, my country's this. No, it's get me the ball, I'm going to score a goal, please get me the ball now.
Right.
I just thought it was hilarious, but at the same time, a microcosm of what we're trying to achieve. Off air, you and I were talking about the relevance of scouting, though, to today's youth. Why is it still relevant today?
I mean, it's relevant if only if the program is intriguing to kids. Mm-hmm. I mean, because if they're not thoroughly enjoying it, they're going to do something else. They're going to walk they're going to walk out of their last troop meeting, and that's it. They're all through. So I think it's relevant in that kids are challenged. Their merit badges are earned, ranks to rise through the organization. So I think they're emotionally and intellectually challenged, and then they're in achieving these various tasks. There's the appropriate awards and feeling good about themselves. Being in the out of doors obviously is a big draw. There's no question about it. If you can go hike in the John Muir Trail or hike Mount Whitney or do all the things that we particularly have available to us here in California, that's very exciting. I mean, it's very exciting.
I'd agree.
And then, it's just fun to be with good friends. If you're, in a scout troop with a bunch of neighborhood friends and you enjoy each other's company, it's just fun.
I'd agree. And I was asked also at summer camp what scouting meant to me, and I've been in scouts, oh golly, stretching back to when I was wee small. But the first thing that jumped to my mind, listeners, is the Scout Oath and the Scout Law. That really, to me, encapsulates scouting. To do my best. And then words like kind, courteous, helpful. It's almost like, if I might say, a moral code that if everyone followed that in today's society, I think we might be a little better off. Instead of cutting people off on the freeway, a little kind, cheerful, and courteous might go a long way. Rick, what are your thoughts? And what does the oath and law mean to you?
You've just described it perfectly. I mean, often we describe the Scout law, Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, reverent. As you described, that in essence becomes a moral compass.
Yes.
It provides the guidelines by which a young man becoming an older man can literally use to guide the rest of his life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, anybody that's been scouting for any period of time knows the difference between right and wrong, plain and simple. There's just no question about it. Yeah.
And what I noticed, Rick, is ventures, they repeat the same thing, so it's boys and girls.
Yep.
And when I was out there looking at the World Scout movement on Brownsea Island, we all repeated the oath,
Yep.
in whatever version it came in our country.
Yep.
But each and every time I kept hearing to do my best,
Yep.
over and over. And wouldn't that be something if we could all aspire to that?
There's no question about it.
It's truly an amazing group, I've got to say, and one of the overlooked aspects I feel, listeners, of scouting is the community service angle. You know, I even brought it up in our own troop, a good churn. It's a project that's out there, and yes, you can earn little badges for it, but the number of hours that scouting commits to community service every year, not just the Eagle projects, your regular scout who isn't an Eagle, the number of hours they put in. And most of the time, in my mind, Rick, it's behind the scenes. The food gathering, the trail work.
Yeah, there's no drama, it's just learning to contribute to your community,
Mm-hmm.
helping people in your own neighborhood. It's not dramatic, it's not glorious,
Mm-hmm.
it's just the way things should be. And the kids are doing it together. This Boy Scouts of America collects more food in February than, again, any other organization or collection of people in the country, and they're very proud of it.
Rick, what does the Eagle rank represent to you?
The Eagle rank is the culmination of a young person's, experience. It happens, they have to achieve their rank of Eagle before their 18th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
18th birthday. And that's sort of an interesting time in a young person's life. I mean, they're about likely to go off to college, you would hope, or
Mm-hmm.
go off to work. They're going to leave the comfort of home.
That's true.
And it's sort of an appropriate time, and if one can demonstrate that they have captured all the values of the Scout Oath and Law, and again the self-esteem and self-confidence that we were referring to, it's the pinnacle of a young person's growth as a human being. There's a very interesting book that was just published in January of this year called The Legacy of Honor.
Oh.
It was printed by, or was written by a young man in his early 30s.
Okay.
Who went to church it was obviously on Scout Sunday in February, and he saw an older man in church with his Eagle badge on the lapel of his coat.
Mm-hmm.
And this Alvin Townley went up to the quote-unquote senior citizen and said, "Oh, you were an Eagle Scout." And he said, "I was an Eagle Scout." And the older man, as quoted in the book, said, "No, I am an Eagle Scout, and you are an Eagle Scout." And that short conversation lingered with Alvin for a period of time. It bothered him. It stimulated his curiosity. What does being an Eagle Scout in America mean? Is it something that once you're 17 or 18 you forget you move on with the rest of your life, or does it have value, and how many Americans are really impacted by it?
Mm-hmm.
And so he spent a year and a half interviewing 500 Eagle Scouts, some of them very famous, some of them that no one would have ever heard of. And it's a fascinating book that demonstrates the depth with which Eagle Scouting is a part of the fabric of America, and scouting in a broader sense. He described the leadership in World War II and all these Eagle Scouts who, were in senior ranks in the Army, Navy, etc., etc., etc. He looked at all the politicians across time, the last 100 years, and how many of them were Eagle Scouts.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that there's some common bond there, and I maintain that if Scouting knows that, there are a little over 50 million Americans who were Scouts living today. If two members of each of those Scouts' family, mom and dad, brother and sister, grandma, grandpa, whatever, but just on average, if there are two members of each of those Scouts' families still alive, that's a half of all Americans. 150 million Americans appreciate the values of scouting.
Exactly.
It's pretty exciting.
We'll pick it up right after this.